Hi everyone, and welcome back to Upside Down Disney. If you're new here, my name is Jess, and today we have a very special guest back on the channel. My partner Lindsay, also known as Duck or Duck's Card Nest, here on YouTube and TikTok. And they are here because we are talking all about our experience at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights RIP tour. And we also have a little mystery unboxing for you guys that we're throwing in here. So stick around if you want to hear all about Universal's Halloween event. So we went to Halloween Horror Nights over Labor Day weekend, which was the opening weekend of the event. We have gone to Horror Nights a couple of times in the past. We went in 2021 and then in 2019 as well.
In the before times.
Yeah. Back in the before times. So this was kind of our first time with it back to like full normal capacity, and full capacity. Because last year when we went, it was very like everything was behind glass and things like that. So this was our first like normal Horror Nights in a very long time. And this was the first year that we've done the RIP tour.
And we did a private RIP tour.
Yes. So the RIP tour is their like VIP experience for Halloween Horror Nights. And you can either do a public tour or a private tour. If you do a public tour, you just pay whatever the cost is for the RIP tour and you get just paired up with random people, to kind of go through the tour with. I think it's also, you get a little bit less time for it as well. It only runs for a certain amount of hours during the event. So the perks that you get with the public one are not quite as good as the ones that you get with the private one. And you're also not in control of what you do throughout the night. Like the person that is your tour guide is in control of everything that you do. Whereas since we did a private one, our friend Ashley, who booked all the tickets, she is Diz Talk Dog over on TikTok. She was kind of like the lead person, like in charge of making, the decisions of what we did throughout the night. So that was kind of nice that we could kind of choose where we wanted to go, when, how we wanted to do it. We did end up really just leaving it up to our person to kind of decide. But other than that, we kind of had, full control. So
the other thing that I liked about it in terms of what we did and how we did it, first off, we could kind of schedule the breaks that we run, right? Like if we wanted to get something to eat real quick or whatever, but also we could do houses multiple times. Mm-hmm. So we did, we'll talk about it much more, but you are eligible, and I don't think you are eligible to do that with the regular RIP tour. I think you just are, you go in the order that you go, but you still get front of the line access for the regular RIP tour. You have, like you said, a set amount of time, but we had our tour guide from 5:30 until 2 a.m. Yeah. And we could do whatever we wanted in that time frame.
Yeah, so we had her for the whole night. And so if you've ever done Halloween Horror Nights before, you know that it gets really crazy busy. We went the night before. We had our RIP tour as well, and we had the express passes, but we still ended up waiting in like 45-minute plus lines at points just because it gets so, super crowded, especially on weekends. And the lines are super long, it's super hot and muggy in the Florida heat, and it's just miserable waiting in those lines.
I don't want to speak for you too much, but I'm not a human that's designed for heat. I'm simply not.
I like the heat, I just don't like the Florida humidity, and that was like my biggest issue with the RIP tour. Plus we were doing a lot of walking throughout the day, the day prior and the day of the tour, because we did both Universal parks on both days, as well as doing Horror Nights on both days that we were there, because we went Labor Day weekend, so we left on a Friday night and we had to come back on that Monday afternoon, because I had work. You all know that I work in school counseling, so school was starting up, so we just kind of used like the brief time that we had for Labor Day weekend with the extra, day off to kind of make a short trip down there. So we were really trying to make the most of everything and do all that we could. By going to Horror Nights multiple nights, and Ash kind of invited us to do this RIP tour with everybody, a whole bunch of our friends. So that was kind of like a last minute thing after we had already had Horror Nights tickets for the night before. So we were very much in pain and very much uncomfortable, but having like the RIP tour was like the saving grace of the whole thing. So yeah, like I said, we went down there on a Friday night, didn't do anything the Friday that we got in. We stayed at Lowe's Portofino Bay, which was not the resort that we originally wanted to stay at, but boy, was it a nice resort.
We do not make enough money to stay there.
We were far too poor to be at that resort.
I actually thought, Ash and our other friend, her husband, Lemuel, who is Magic Bands and Trash Cans on TikTok, they described it as the Grand Floridian of Universal, and that is the most apt description.
Absolutely right.
It was beautiful inside. It was really nice. It had so much to it. It's sort of like Italian villa themed. It's beautiful. Lots of little shops like on the bottom floor, a bunch of bars, you know, restaurants, a Starbucks is in there. Like, it's a really beautiful place. I'm sure you'll put in like clips or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somewhere here. And it's a beautiful hotel, but wow, it is. I just I feel the same way about the Grand Floridian, right? Like, I'm gonna walk in and they're like, you with the backwards dinosaur hat, get out, you don't belong here. You know, so it was nice that we got the opportunity to stay there, specifically because of the Horror Nights ticket deal. So because obviously with Labor Day weekend, they want people traveling down there for the long weekend. They always run deals, and that's part of why we will usually do a day at Universal over Labor Day weekend. And so with the deal, it's with like the premium hotels that they have, so it'll either be Portofino Bay, Hard Rock, or
Royal Pacific.
What's the one that we stayed at last year, and I never remember the name of it. So Royal Pacific. Royal Pacific was where we would have preferred to stay, but Portofino Bay was absolutely gorgeous. I'd recommend it for like a longer vacation, right? Like something, a special event, a romantic
like
getaway,
honeymoon or something. Yeah.
That's definitely like what it's appropriate for. Not that we had a bad time,
no,
but
not at all.
It is just such a beautiful hotel. It feels like it was such a waste because we were in the parks the whole day.
We don't really have a lot of time to spend any, time in the hotel, going to the pool, exploring the shops and the restaurants and stuff. And there was like a lot of stuff. There was like a gelato place.
A lot
of like really cute shops and stuff that were in there. So it was just like, it seemed like a nice resort to get to explore and spend some time in. And we just didn't really have the time to do that, unfortunately, with, how much limited time we had on this trip. So yeah, and they were like super sweet. Lindsay had put on the reservation that it was their birthday because their birthday had just passed this week. So the trip down there for, Horror Nights and like that Labor Day weekend trip is always like a 2-in-1, like trip to go see all the spooky stuff in Orlando, plus to celebrate Lindsay's birthday. So they were nice enough. One of the nights we came back from the room, there was there was wine and chocolate covered strawberries.
And they were good chocolate.
They were really good chocolate covered strawberries.
They didn't cheap out. They were like big strawberries with like premium. I was really surprised. And the wine was good too.
Yeah, it was good wine, good strawberries. It was super sweet. Not expected at all, but just like that like extra touch of magic that you get when you stay at resorts at like Disney, Universal, all those like theme park places where they just do those extra things. So that was super nice. So would highly recommend staying at Lowe's Portofino Bay if you can afford it. And so then, we got there Friday night. Then Saturday, we went into the parks. We went to Islands of Adventure in the morning. And then we did our first round of Horror Nights that night. And we had the express passes, so we were able to do more houses than we probably would have been without them. So we did half of the houses then. And then we did the other half of the houses when we went, back for our RIP tour. So we got to do all 10 houses, some of them multiple times. We got to see all the scare zones. We saw the stage show, which was something that we had never done before because we were always too concerned with trying to get to all the houses we wanted to, that we didn't want to take the time out to see the stage show, which was actually really cool. Definitely not for everybody, but it was a very cool experience. It's a very adult kind of show, so not for if you come with like your young kids. Definitely not something I would take them to, but it was just really like impressive, like the artistry. It was like a lot of dancing and stuff, and so it was just really impressive what the dancers could do. So it was cool to watch and just see. But
yeah, I think that Lemon Ash again had said it best, where they wish that there was more variety. And our other tour mates too, Ellie's Grape Soda Club, Kirk of Walrus Carp Clothing, all of our tour mates felt the same way, where like it was all really cool, but it felt like, and it was all very impressive, don't get me wrong. Any performers that are in there, like, God, I would die doing anything remotely touching the sort of physicality that they have. So it was all very impressive. It was all very well done. I just wish that there was more variety to it, and I think that the variety would have helped the show flow a little bit better. As Jess had said, we had never done the show before, but in previous years, apparently they had different acts. They had a contortionist, they had, just more variety to it, where this was a lot of like aerial tricks and fire. And that's totally cool, don't get me wrong, it's very impressive, but it just felt kind of repetitive after a while.
Yeah.
And if our tour guide didn't need her legally mandated 45-minute break, I don't know that we would have opted to see the show.
Yeah.
Because I had heard, mixed things about it in general. And so, it was not a bad show by any means.
No.
It was very impressive. I just don't know that it would rank on my top things that we saw at Horror Nights.
But if we did have an RIP tour, I would probably still just go to it because there's time and it was a nice break to get off your feet after walking for a long time.
It's very nice to sit.
So it was just nice to sit and get to just watch something and not have to keep walking around. So in that sense, if you do have the time to do it, I would recommend doing it just because it is that nice break.
I will also say, absolutely, I completely agree, but I will also say that if you want to see the show, or you are on some sort of VIP, the RIP, the regular, or the paid, make sure that you get there early because that stadium packs. It fills, and it's very hot in there because there's fire as most of the acts. So being crushed together in the Florida heat with fire acts.
Very uncomfortable.
It was real claustrophobic real quick.
Yeah.
I don't do well in those kinds of situations of just being packed in with people. I was getting very nervous and very uncomfortable.
And especially in these sort of post-COVID but still mid-COVID times, it was just a little bit uncomfortable to be squeezed in so tight with all those people that you don't know.
Yeah,
that's something to consider.
Yeah. So I certainly, if you need the break or if it's scheduled in, go. You'll enjoy it. It just was not, it was some nice entertainment to get off your feet for a little bit.
Yeah. And also if you don't want to do the show, say you didn't have express passes or you didn't have an RIP tour, the show time is a good time to try to get some houses done because that takes up a lot of the crowd when the shows are running. So some of the houses might be a little less crowded at that time because people want to get stuff done so that they can go to the shows. So you might have less of a wait, at some of the houses during that time.
Yeah, it's like riding the rides during the fireworks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So something else to consider when deciding, what to skip out on and what to do while you are at Horror Nights. But so
what I would not skip out on is any of the houses.
No, not at all. So do you want to get right into talking about our RIP experience, or do you want to do some hauling of merch first, or
whichever? I have no preference. I mean, I'm dying to open those little mystery boxes.
Yeah, all right, so let's do the little mystery unboxing, take a short intermission in our review of our time there to open these little guys. So we picked up a couple of these Studio Screamers vinyl figures from the focus because Lindsay's face is there. You're not gonna focus. I really got to do that beauty guru thing, but it's hard to do with this big box.
I was gonna say your hand is that big.
No, my hand is not gonna be big enough to cover it. So we picked these up in the Universal, the tribute store. They do a tribute store a couple of times a year. I think they do one for Halloween, for Christmas, for Mardi Gras. They might have one as well. And it's basically just a gift shop in Universal that they really theme towards whatever event that is, and you can get all the special merchandise for the event in there. They did have these guys spread out throughout the parks too, but they're basically kind of like Funko Mystery Minis. They're just little vinyl figures, that come in these little boxes. And this year they had them themed to some of the, just some of the characters that are, popular in Horror Nights or were being featured in Horror Nights this year. So you have the Bride of Frankenstein, who was not featured this year, but was last year. You have Casper, who is a limited edition one. So he's like a special kind of chaser if we get him. They had a couple of Casper themed things there this year. You have Michael Myers from Halloween. There was a Halloween house this year. You have the director, who is one of the Horror Nights icons. You have the Wolfman, obviously a classic Universal monster. And then you had the Pumpkin Lord, who was this year's Horror Nights icon.
He was sort of the icon. I would call him the main attraction, one of the scare zones. There was no official icon for this year.
Yeah, I feel like he kind of was, I don't know. He was like the unofficial.
Him and Little Boo became the de facto.
Yeah, because they didn't
icons.
really have like an official one.
I still think that it was meant to be the director originally, and then some sort of plan somehow fell apart. And then they kind of had to scramble, and then they just kind of made the Pumpkin Lord front and center of a lot of stuff. And then Little Boo, obviously, because all hail Little Boo.
Yes. So these were, how much were these? Like $15?
That sounds about
right. So we picked up a couple of them, and then we had a gift card that Lindsay's mom purchase for us. So
Thanks,
we decided
Debbie.
shout out to Debbie. So we just decided to pick up a couple more of them for ourselves too. So I think we have like quite a few.
We have 4 of them.
We have 4.
All right.
All right. So we got all 4 of them. So
All right. Who are you hoping for?
I am really hoping for the Pumpkin Lord, Mike Myers, and Casper.
Ooh, good choices. I think I'd be cool with the Pumpkin Lord. I obviously want Michael Myers. To anybody who knows me, Halloween is one of my favorite movies of all time. I like the director as an icon. I think he's really underappreciated, and I like the Wolfman, so.
All right. So let's just break in. You want to do the honors of opening the
I
first one?
sure do, because I've been dying to break into these things. I have no patience. They're also going to be in a blind bag? Yes, of course they are.
Of course.
All right, let's see if I can open this. Wow, this was one of the easiest ones. Beautiful.
Is it?
It's Mike Myers.
Michael Myers is
Beautiful.
our first one.
Oh, I love him.
Absolutely perfect.
His
He's got the
forehead is
little blood
huge.
tears. Yeah, his forehead is huge. He's holding the knife. And he is just adorable. He's got like that big head, little body kind of thing going, like the little Funko
I have
Mystery
a big
Minis.
head and little arms, and I'm not sure how well thought out this plan is.
And these are like decent size. They're bigger than a Funko Mystery Mini. So this
No,
is
they
like a
definitely
decent
are.
size little mystery guy. So
Yeah.
absolutely loved him. Really awesome first.
All right, so
Full
first up, I'm very happy.
There. Yeah. All right. Let's see who our second guy is.
He's just a little guy.
Just a little guy holding a knife.
He just wants to kill who you later find out is his sister. But not, because now with the new movies, it's been retconned, so 2 through everything else never happened.
Never happened, yeah.
So now it's just 1, and then these latest ones.
Also, the bags are really cute. They say Studio Screamers on the little bag.
They are nice and clean.
Yeah. Also, sorry to anybody who is following me purely for Disney content and is not into spooky or horror at all.
No, don't apologize.
But I feel
This
like
is your channel.
I feel like if you follow me, like, you're also sort of into spooky, because I really do a lot of the spookier side of Disney. So I feel like you've got to be like sort of into spooky.
Wolfie! Yay!
All right, our second one is the Wolfman, who was featured in the Universal Monsters house.
Yes.
Which we will talk about more specifically when we kind of go through our night and the, houses and stuff. But he is absolutely adorable.
I love him.
Look at his little teepees.
Oh. I have such a soft
adorable.
spot for the Wolfman. I think he's my favorite out of the monsters. All right, this guy feels kind of thick. It could be the director who has a big head. It could be, actually, it really could be any of them. They're all big. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm
They're
saying
all,
that
like, bigger.
as if the heft has anything to do with it. All right,
I
let's
feel like
see.
this one doesn't shake around a lot. That could just be because of the way the bag is positioned,
Yeah.
or because he's something like cooler.
Oh,
Who is it?
I'm gonna be very happy.
Is it Pumpkin?
It's
Casper! He's the limited edition!
Yes, he is.
Oh my god!
Here, you're better at this than I am. Go ahead.
Let me get the beauty
Yeah,
guru
there you go.
thing going. So we've got Casper the friendly ghost.
And he comes with a stand. In case
Ooh, and he has a
anybody's
little
curious.
stand,
Yeah.
perfect, so that he can stand up. Can I see the stand?
That's so cute. Does he glow in the dark?
He looks like he could glow in the dark.
He must. I think he does, because underneath where it says limited edition is in like a different color.
He might glow in the
I think
dark.
he glows.
Well, we
Stand
will-
by. If he glows in the dark, you'll throw in some footage here of him
We
glowing in the
will
dark.
just have to see if he glows in the dark. But he is so cute. Who else really loved the Casper movie as a kid?
I loved Christina Ricci. If
I
that's
watched
what you're
it
asking.
every single year. And wasn't there one with Hilary Duff too?
Yep, that was the second one.
I also watched that one a lot because I loved Hilary Duff.
That explains a lot about who we are as people now.
Yeah. But he's so cute. Look at his happy little face. I really wished, once I found out that Casper was kind of being featured at Horror Nights this year, I was really wishing that there would be a Casper the Friendly Ghost meet and greet or something.
Okay, so as I said to
But-
you, I am not unconvinced that it was supposed to happen, because he was featured in bracelets, in earrings, in this figure
Yeah,
set.
he was everywhere.
I think a lot of things were supposed to happen this year that just
Yeah.
kind of didn't. I know for a fact there was originally supposed to be an Evil Dead house that then got converted at the last second to something else. So, I know a lot of things were kind of changing at the 11th hour with Horror Nights. Not that thankfully it impacted our experience in any way,
No.
but there's a lot of stuff that's moving until the 11th hour with this event, always.
Yeah. And there was a lot of I feel like Chucky was he kind of featured last year and this year, but not in a big capacity. So I'm wondering if also some stuff with pandemicness last year, some things got like, they weren't able to do them in time, so they just did them for this year kind of thing. So maybe Casper was one of those things that like, some of it fell through, but the merchandising didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think that's probably what happened with the director, where he's on some merchandise, but not on others. I think that's probably what happened with Casper, but also with Chucky. Some of the way that these contracts work, from my understanding, is that you have a contractual amount of time that these things need to appear in your events. That's why Beetlejuice got featured for 2 years in a row. That's why they used it for that Horror Nights event in 2020. And they had like a mini shortened version of the house, because if they didn't use it, they would have lost the rights to it. So I know that's why they did it in 2020 and then did a full scale one in 21, so that they can continue to retain the rights for the house, like they didn't diminish it or lose it rather. So I have a strong feeling that some of this merch being thrown out there is like a use it or lose it type of clause. So, and then they had plans for it, like larger plans, like a Casper thing, or, you know, that's why Chucky's here again, because they had a contractual amount of time, but, you know, just doesn't always work out the full way.
That's very true.
Yeah, so that's my little inside baseball knowledge, but go ahead, continue with the Screamers.
Last Screamer, let's see.
Last Screamer magic.
Oh, another Wolfie.
Oh, that's okay. Now we each have a Wolfie.
All right, so not a bad one to get a double of. We got the Wolfman.
Or if somebody wants to trade.
Yeah, if somebody wants to trade, if anybody has particularly the Pumpkin Lord, but also the director, we'd even trade for Bride of Frankenstein if you have one.
I like Bride of Frankenstein. I like all the classic monsters. That's why I got excited in a second Wolfie.
Yeah, so if you have any of them and want to trade, otherwise we would be happy to keep.
One can be an office Wolfie, one can be a living room Wolfie. Exactly. It's perfect.
Exactly. You can never have too many Wolfies.
Exactly.
So, on to talking a little bit about the RIP tour. We can just kind of go in like order of like the event and like kind of give you a rundown of how the night kind of works if you do the RIP tour. So basically you can have up to 10 people, right, at the RIP tour. And so the more people you have, kind of the cheaper it is for everybody, because it's kind of like one flat fee.
I will also say the price changes depending on the weekend that you go.
Yes.
Just as regular Horror Nights tickets will fluctuate in price depending on the day, the private RIP tour, and I believe the regular RIP tour as well, those prices fluctuate depending on the night that you're picking to actually do the tour.
Yeah, and so whether it's like a weekend or a weeknight, usually later in the season, events like this will get more expensive. If you've ever done Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, you know this. So, you know, the closer to Halloween you get, but the prices will fluctuate. And the price of the RIP tour does not include your price of admission into the park. So you still have to have a separate Halloween Horror Nights event ticket as well. So luckily we were able to get discounts on all of those things from Ash, because they are pass holders, and so there was some kind of a deal going where you were able to get, you know, discounted admission and discounted RIP tours. So we didn't have to pay even what the full price would have been for that night. It shook out to be about $350 per person, I think, for everybody, right?
I think it was a little more. I think it was like I'm going to say it was closer to 400.
So it was between 350 and probably by the time the ticket got added in and everything, it was around 400.
We'll call it 400 just to be on the safe side.
Yeah. So, you know, it is a pricey event. But again, the more people you have, like we had 9 people that were purchasing tickets to the event, or 10 people. So that was, you know, the cheapest that everybody could be paying, because we had the max amount of people that were chipping in for this experience.
And it was opening weekend, which is a little bit cheaper. So 400-ish was for the ticket and the tour and everything, obviously, that the tour includes. Yeah.
So you can start getting in for the tour at around 5:30 p.m. There is, you know, a separate entrance to go through if you have an RIP tour. And then if you have a private tour, you have access to, it's, you know, just basically this, like, I want to say, like, almost like ballroom area, like event space area.
It's like a corporate lounge, I would call it. Like it's like a space that you can rent out. It's like a small VFW hall up top. I don't know how else to explain it other than, like, you know, like, I think that's probably the most Jersey thing that I've ever said.
That is the most Jersey thing I've ever said.
Renting out a VFW hall. But yeah, so where it's just like, it's like a small bar. It's not open or active or anything, but there's a small bar. There's a balcony so you can look out and, as I'm sure you'll talk about, watch the opening ceremonies. And that's kind of where you meet up and you collect your group before you head out on the tour.
Yeah, so the whole group heads up there. That's where they hook you up with your tour guide. And then you can just kind of hang out around there for a little bit, kind of, you know, just relax until the actual event opens, because you don't get to go in until the event opens, really, but you can kind of hang out there, and you do get to go out onto the balcony to watch what is the opening ceremonies, which is kind of what they do to open the event. Kind of Mickey's Not So Scary, I'm sure, has a similar kind of opening kind of thing.
Don't they have the horseman ride down Main Street to open it?
Yeah, kind of like how I think before the parade, they have the horseman ride down Main Street. So it's kind of similar to that, where they have like all the spooks and all the scare actors come out. And they're all ripping chainsaws and stuff, and
walking on stilts and being creepy, and the Pumpkin Lord screaming at you.
Yeah, I'll insert some footage. I got some really terrible footage from the balcony that I will insert here, but
Is it? All your designs and plans are for naught. For I have been summoned by my loyal followers. As Halloween grows, so does my power. My followers, are you ready to spread fear? Let us open the gates and begin our reign, for we are Halloween!
it's really fun to be able to watch. And otherwise, the only way to really watch it is if you're standing at the the front of the line, squished in like a sardine. So it was really fun. Our tour guide was joking that we got to watch all the peasants down below as we watched from the balcony.
It did feel that way.
Fun. It was fun, and it was cool because we'd never stopped to watch the opening ceremonies before, just because we were always
we always do stay and screen,
yes.
which basically it's an extra $30 or something like that usually, and it lets you stay in the park, so that way you can line up in certain designated like corral areas. Mm-hmm. So you can they'll say it starts at 6, they'll usually open those houses between 5:30 and 6, so that way they can start moving some mm-hmm. people through. It's a great way to hit. Usually we can get 2 to 3 houses done very quickly, very early.
Yeah, because of that.
Yeah, because of the stay and scream. So if you are doing it, even with an express pass, if you're not doing the RIP tour, I think stay and scream is totally worth the $30.
Absolutely. So once the opening ceremonies are over and everybody is allowed to go into the park, our tour guide kind of left it up to us with what we can do. And we decided to go grab some food because you do get complimentary food and desserts and non-alcoholic beverages if you want to purchase alcohol. Most of the areas for the free food do serve alcohol, but you just have to pay for it. So we decided that we wanted to go get some food before we started, out on our journey. So there was a private kind of like food area at La Bamba, and then there was another one. I forget the name of the restaurant that one was in, but it was the place near like the Amity, like the Jaws themed bar. It was there.
I'm totally having a stroke.
I forget the name of the place. I'll look it up and put it.
It's on the corner right there. I'm completely
like right by the entrance to Diagon Alley. It's like right down there. So those were the 2 food locations. And so we went to the one at La Bamba first because it was closest to where we had come into the park. And they just had like a free buffet. So there was like all the classic Horror Nights foods. There was like pizza fries and stuff like that. And there was like a burger option, some mac and cheese, just some like basic, food. But hey, it was free. And there was also scare actors walking around the dining room as you were eating, which was a lot of fun.
Which, really quick, our friend Walrus Kirk has a really great video of our friend Ellie a scare actor is coming up behind her, and she has like a long, like flowing, I don't know, a cloak almost, and then like slowly drapes it over Ellie's head. Ellie has no idea until the thing is in front of her face. Kirk posted a video on his TikTok. I'm sure you'll throw the link in.
Yes.
It's perfect because you just see out of the corner of the camera this like ethereal looking woman coming and just draping her cloak over Ellie. It was so funny.
So good. I was trying to like silently warn her that they were behind her, and she just was not picking up the
and you can
the
hear
cues,
us
but
cackle in the background
absolutely
of the video.
cackling.
It's so funny.
It was so good, but it's a lot of fun. You already get the spooky experience like right from the get-go with it. And so then, there was obviously like the free water and soda and whatever. And you could buy drinks to eat with your food as well if you wanted to. And so then once we were done eating, we decided to head off and do the houses. And our lovely tour guide, Lindsay, not this Lindsay, another Lindsay, let us...
That got a little confusing through the night.
It did get a little confusing, but she was kind of like, it is totally up to you. But we were kind of like, well, we want to do all the houses. So whatever order you think makes the most sense to do them in, just take us that way.
So do you want to run through the order that we wound up doing them in? Because I think that was a pretty good order. It was pretty logical.
So she took us towards the ones that were in like the back of the park. If you go off to the right, like towards
the sound stages.
Towards the kids areas, like towards like ET or towards the little Curious George playground area. Like we did all of those houses first, and then we kind of went around back to the front of the park.
Yeah, we did like warehouses, then the tent houses, in case anybody knows what I'm talking about. Then we did, then we went over to the Fast and the Furious queue house. Then we did the show, and then we went back and then we did the soundstage houses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they actually are using like some of the like sound stages, some of the ride queues and things like that as parts of these houses. And like the sound stages, like what they would actually use to like film stuff back in the day when Universal Studios was like a functional like film studio as well as.
I think they still do.
They do occasionally. I think not quite as much as they used to, but so they like kind of use some of those areas to create the Horror Nights houses because they are just these like big open areas. So we did the ones that were towards the back first. So we started off the night with the Universal Monster or the Weekend.
The Universal Monsters. No, we did the Weekend first. You're right.
So we started off the night with the Weekend house, and then we went over to the Universal Monsters because it was kind of right across from it. And then after that, we went to Descendants of Destruction is what it was called, right? And then we went to Bugs, Eaten Alive. And then we went to... I think after that, we went back and got some food, right? Again, we went and got more food and hung out and took some breaks.
Maybe.
And then went to the Blum House. And then we went to the show. And then I think
Then we knocked out those other 5.
And then we knocked out the last 5 houses, which were... I
know that we did Hell Block. So I think we did Spirits first, Spirits of the Coven. Then we did Hell Block. Then we did Chupacabra. Then we did Halloween. And we finished out on Dead Man's Wharf. I'm sorry. Dead Man's Pier. I keep wanting to call it Dead Man's Wharf.
It's okay.
Because that's what the scare zone was called, yes. I think.
Yeah. And as we went through, we also did all of the scare zones that there were. So there was 5. I want to say there's 5 scare zones. 4 or 5.
There's 4 because there's the Scarecrow one.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Little Kids Halloween one. The Sweets one.
Mm-hmm.
There was the first Halloween. I forget exactly what they're calling it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the main one when you walk in where the Pumpkin Lord was.
Yes,
so I believe there's 4.
And so we went through some of them during, the daylight as we were kind of walking through, and some of them we did at night. I took video in most of the scare zones, so I'll kind of post some of that video in here so you can kind of see what each of them was. But the scare zones this year were like really good. I like them a lot, and especially the one that was like the Sweets one. It was really like it had a lot of stuff from previous Horror Nights scare zones as well in it, so it was like kind of a throwback to other things. So it was a lot of fun.
I think you liked it because it's like if Halloween Town was a genuine horror movie, right? Like I think that's the vibe that I got from it.
That was the vibe it gave off. So I really loved it.
Yeah.
And it featured Little Boo a little bit, the unofficial mascot for this year. So
our buddy.
We absolutely love Little Boo. So first house of the night that we did, let's kind of quickly give like a run through of the houses. So first house of the night was the Weekend. Was it called After Hours Nightmare, I think? And so for those of you that are familiar with the Weeknd's music, you would know that his music videos do have kind of a horror theme to them.
They're essentially short, interconnected horror movies.
Yeah, and so this house is kind of like an expansion on those music videos. So it was a really, really cool house and really spooky, and like you weren't quite sure what to expect from it, but it was actually really scary. If you're not into like body horror and things like that, like just a bit of like a trigger warning for that, but like I'm not really a fan of it. It really creeps me out, but I thought it was well done enough that like it was scary in just the right ways, where it wasn't like this like grotesque gore over the top kind of thing, but it was like just the right amount of creepy.
No, I agree. I actually like The Weeknd a lot. I had seen the music videos prior. I think they did a good job of stringing them all together. And his music plays while you're in the house, so like it's kind of hard to not dance as you're seeing somebody be viciously murdered in front of you. I will say, and I'm going to probably say this a couple times through the video, our run through on the night that we did the VIP tour was so much better than the night that we did it originally. That house and Monsters were the two most noticeable instances of it, I think. Yeah. Where our run through of the VIP night was so much better. And that's interesting because the VIP we did on a Sunday, and the original non-VIP just with Express was a Saturday.
Yeah, and it was like the second night, right? Because Friday was the opening night, and so it was the Saturday was the second night of the event, but it seemed like some of the houses weren't fully cast the night that we were there, but then they were on the RIP tour night, so it just, ended up, it was what it was.
Yeah, sometimes it's just, the thing with horror nights, for anybody who hasn't gone, or even people who have, sometimes the houses are just so dependent on your particular run through of how much you'll enjoy them. Yeah. And this is why you see such like lack of consensus across the spectrum of what is the best house of the year or whatever. Because I saw some people feeling the same way, where they did the Monsters house twice, or they did the Weeknd house twice, and their first run through was not very good. They went to like a Friday night, but then when they went another night sometime this week, it was great, and it was one of their favorite houses. And so I think you have to remember it's very dependent on your timing, because if you see every scare coming, it gets a little less fun. Yeah. And it's also dependent on the availability of the scare actors and the flow of the house in terms of the availability of the scare actors to pop out and scare you. Yeah. And because there was a whole sequence at the end, the very last room in the Weeknd house. I don't want to spoil it, but the thing that comes out alongside of you at the last house was not there on our Saturday run. No. Yeah. But it was there on our Sunday run. Yeah. So.
Exactly. So, but even without that, like, I still felt like the Weeknd house did really well and was really good the first night that we were there as well. It was, like, one of my favorite houses. I think the one that suffered the most from this, though, was the Universal Monsters house. So that was the second house that we went to. And this one followed the Wolfman as he tried to get this ancient Egyptian amulet that he thought would cure, him of being a werewolf because it had the powers of the sun and the moon. And so it follows him, trying to go through and get this amulet and cure himself. But he does not realize that I believe it is Dracula is also trying to get this, as well as the Mummy are also trying to get this amulet. Somebody's awakening the Mummy, and he is also out to get this amulet. So the whole house is them kind of fighting it out and trying to, win this amulet. And the first night that we were there, it really suffered because it wasn't fully cast. So we kind of missed out on some of the story. We also didn't know at the time that it is a part 1 to a house that is at Universal Studios Hollywood over in California, and they have part 2 to that house. So knowing that it wasn't a complete story also kind of helped, and that was some knowledge that we got on the RIP tour, because your tour guide kind of tells you a little bit of backstory on all the scare zones and all the houses before you go through them. So having that bit of story beforehand really was helpful to understanding and appreciating the house a little bit more, because we definitely had a lot better of a time on the second run through. When the first night we really, we came out, and that was our least favorite house of the 5 that we had done that night.
And my feelings were personally hurt by how bad it was, because I love the Universal Monsters. I was really excited for it. The very first year that they did the Monsters house in 2019, that was also my favorite. That was also a really, really good one. And, just seeing the monsters done right is what these houses always feel like to me. And so seeing a monster not done right and felt like it was sort of half done was and I took that personally, you know what I mean? I was very upset about it. But the second run through that we got was perfect.
So good.
Perfect timing.
Fully cast, perfect timing.
My only complaint that still stands true is that I felt like it was so entirely themed around the mummy, and there was, this is slight spoilers, I was expecting there to be more Dracula actors through it, but you really only see him towards the end.
Yeah, he's only there a couple of times.
And, again, possible spoilers, skip ahead a couple seconds. Who wins each night rotates. So, the first night that we watched it, Dracula won, and I had no idea what was going on. And then we get to the end, and my Wolfman's head is being held by Dracula. And I was upset. But the second night,
Wolfman
won, and we all started cheering.
And he just starts dancing around, and he's, like, celebrating with us. It was so fun.
It was so funny, because I come around the corner, because we were in the front, so we come around the corner, and I see the mummy in the corner, and I'm like, okay, so, like, either Dracula won again or the Wolfman won. It's gotta be the Wolfman. And then he has the hand outstretched, and as I come around the corner, I see it's Dracula, and I just
Wolfman, you mean?
Holding Dracula's head,
oh.
sorry. It's like, the head is what I saw first, because he has his arm outstretched, and I see Wolfman is triumphant, and I start losing my mind. If you were that scare actor, if by some chance you see this, that made everybody's night. We're still talking about it. The fact that you were just like, yeah, I won. It was so good. It was so good.
So much fun.
I was so happy Wolfman won. I felt so much better.
And then the third house of the night that we went to was Descendants of Destruction, which was a sequel to another house that they had done a few years prior.
Called Seeds of Destruction.
And so in this house, there has kind of been like nuclear apocalypse in, the world. And this takes place in New York. And people have kind of gone underground into like subway tunnels to try to survive this like fallout.
If anybody's played the Fallout games, it's as if,
very much like that.
It's as if, the vaults that end up as you're walking through, I forget exactly what vault number it is. I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments. There's that one specific vault that ends up opening up into the caves, and then you walk into the caves and there's just like unspeakable horrors down there. It's that, but in a house.
Yeah, so it kind of goes through, at first you're walking through and it is like people who have turned into cannibals. And then people...
So, it's three sections. It's the survivors. Mm-hmm. It's then them descending into cannibalism.
Yeah.
And then it's them descending into monsters.
Yeah. And so you kind of go through, all of that as you go through the house. And then, as I found out from our tour guide, I guess you're supposed to die at the end of most of these houses. Like,
yes.
You don't make it out alive. So that is one that you do not make it out alive from. The monsters get you in the end.
When things feel like they end abruptly, it's because you've died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, blank screen coming up, you've died.
Yeah. So...
it's actually the Dark Souls screen. Get good. Sorry, that was really specific.
No, you're good. So, yeah, that house is a lot of fun. It was the cannibals part was, I think, the scariest part. The monsters were kind of comical.
They were, but at one part, Kirk goes, "Are we in the cannibalism part?" And as he's saying that, this woman pops out, basically like with a half-eaten head, and is like, "Yes, yeah." It was really fun. Are we in the cannibalism?
Yes, yeah, cannibalism.
It was so good.
Yeah, it was
and
so funny.
I will say, doing this with friends was so good. Mm-hmm. If you can only afford, if like the regular RIP tour is what you can afford, please do that, because the tours are just like, each tier that you can add to these events are always so worth it. So if you can just swing the regular one, do the regular one. But with the private tour, doing it with all friends, it really made it like such a special event, because then you can just talk about everything that you experienced for the next couple weeks, and it's just so much fun. It's like so bonding to be scared absolutely out of your wits with your friends.
It really is. So that was the third house. Then we went to Bugs Eaten Alive, which I will let Lindsay tell you all about, because I skipped out on that house because I hate bugs, especially spiders and things like that, and so I could just tell that it was not going to be a house for me. So me and the tour guide hung out outside the exit while Lindsay and everybody else went inside, so I'll let them tell you.
Which, rightly so. Knowing you would not have had a good time. You made the right call for yourself to skip it. So the gist of Bugs Eaten Alive is that you are at a trade show, essentially, in the 1950s, very like home of the future. And there is what is supposed to be a new chemical spray that just can install in your house as if it's like an air conditioner. And it will just occasionally spray, pesticide. I couldn't think of the word. It'll just occasionally spray pesticide out, and then it will, oh, lo and behold, you never have to worry about bugs. All those retro gadgets. But of course it goes horribly wrong, and actually it just sprays continuously while at this trade show, and what is in the gas actually ends up mutating the bugs that they were using to demonstrate the powers of the bug spray, and it goes bad from there. And of course now the military has come in. It was a goofy house. Like it very much felt like The Fly, or if anybody has seen any of those like retro, very large, like, kaiju movies, like a Godzilla type, where like all of a sudden something is mutated, or like everybody knows those like sci-fi drive-in movies from the 50s. It was that, but a walk-through house. The costumes felt cheesy. The dress of everybody felt cheesy. The military garb felt cheesy, but it was all intentional. It was goofy in like I wanted to say art pop, but that's not that's not the word I'm looking. It was goofy in a pop art kind of way. You know what I mean? Like it was intentional. It was over the top. It was a very 50s sci-fi, drive-in type of deal.
I think art pop would have worked. Very gaga. It was camp.
The Kunzes in me. Yeah, so I liked it a lot. It was not amongst my favorite houses. It was enjoyable, and I think that they executed well what they were going for. Mm-hmm. There was lots of creepy crawly thin fishing wire that, as you would hear bugs kind of skitter by in the dark, it didn't particularly bother me because I had a hat on, so it wasn't like hitting the top of my head where I think I would have felt more uncomfortable. But if you are...
I would have lost my mind.
Yeah, that's why I said, if you are in any capacity uncomfortable with bugs, like if it is your biggest fear, I wouldn't go. If you're okay with like The Fly, like the Jeff Goldblum version where it's like a little more body horror-y, you'll be perfectly fine. Just know that there is some stuff that hangs down thin fishing wire that makes you feel creepy crawly, and you're okay. It really is very over the top, and I don't think I didn't find it scary. I found it goofy. That was definitely what they were going for. And yeah, if you are not a bug person like Jess, then skip it. No shame, just keep on keeping on.
Yep. And if you are on the RIP tour, you do have that option. You don't have to do every house. Our tour guide even didn't do one house with us because she
didn't do a couple.
It was only the two. It was just bugs and Hellblock Horror that she didn't do with us, because she had done them both, and she decided that bugs was definitely not for her. Mm-hmm. And same with Hellblock. She was like, there was parts of it that I just didn't want to experience again. And so she just didn't do them, and that was fine. She waited outside for us, or, I waited outside with her when I also didn't do the house. So that is absolutely an option. If there's something that you feel like is just too scary for you, or too much for you, or is triggering for you, like, you can absolutely sit the house out, and that is fine. You're not, like, forced to do it because the rest of your group does it.
There's no shame in taking the chicken exit if you need to.
Absolutely. And also something I found out, if you are ever too scared in a house, all you have to do is find a Universal cast member that is standing in the house. They are, like, hidden in the corners a little bit, so they're not as obvious. Sometimes they scare you, too.
Sometimes you round a corner and think it's a scare actor, and it's just a regular person.
But if you tell them that you're freaking out and you need to leave, they will get you out of the house. They will take you out, like, a back exit to get you out sooner without having to walk through the whole house. Mm-hmm. So that is something that I found out that I never realized about horror nights. I've never, like, felt like I needed to use the chicken exit of a house, but to know that they're there is good.
Yeah.
So that is something else if you're going and you're not sure about it, because you are like, if I'm freaking out, what am I going to do? You can always ask to leave. Mm-hmm. So that's something good to know. So that was the first 4 houses. And then I think we took a break at that point and went to the other food location, and by that point it was a lot of desserts that were being put out, so we had some like cupcakes and
Men
stuff.
in Black.
Oh yeah, we rode Men in Black.
This is a far more important story than I think anything else that we'll share.
Yes.
This was, with no exaggeration, like well and truly specifically a childhood dream of mine to have done.
So in addition to you get to go through all the backstage areas to get to the front of the lines for all these houses. You get to go basically through the exits of the houses. For some of them, they take you through some of the backstage areas. Like we got to walk past like a hair and makeup tent or trailer to get to some of the houses, because they really just take you right up to the entrance and you get to skip the whole line. You can also do that on all of the rides. So they take you through the exits of the rides or through some backstage areas of the rides that people don't usually get to see.
We went through the back of Gringotts. That was
cool.
We
went through the back of Gringotts and stuff like that. So it was really cool to get to see all these backstage areas. And so there was absolutely no filming in any of those areas or pictures in those areas. There's also no filming inside of the houses. So that is why there's not going to be any footage of any of the insides of the houses in this video either. But so with getting to go through all of the exits in Men in Black, we got to go through a particularly cool area of the ride that I will let Lindsay tell you about because it was literally like the dream of their life. So.
I simply texted my entire immediate family and was like, you'll never guess what I got to do. So, on the Men in Black ride, the gist of it is that you're supposed to be a trainee and you've joined the Men in Black and you go through and it's just like a little run and gun type of game. Kind of like
Buzz Lightyear
Space Ranger Spin,
at Disney World and things like that. And it's like that scene in the movie where Jay is like shooting at the targets, doing like the target practice. And he starts shooting at like the little girl and all the other people rather than the aliens. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah. So that's basically
exactly the ride. What it is. So that's the gist of the ride, right? Where it's like the Midway Mania or the Space Ranger Spin or any of those. And so, as a consequence, you, as part of the queue area, are walking through the Mib Control Room. In the movies, which I watched quite a bit with my family as a kid, and we went on this ride a whole bunch when I was a kid. I was obsessed with it. It's like the control room, so it's like the big TV that they have that they're like, working through, and the blue aliens with the long arms are pressing the buttons at the computer, and there's like the little white desks and whatever. And so as a consequence, they have animatronics of the blue little aliens. It's the big TV. It's like you're walking through the control room in the queue. We got to go down there.
Because you're like walking above it in the actual ride queue, and it's kind of down below you, and you just get to kind of see it all happening, but you don't get to walk through it. But we got to go through it at the end of our ride, and it was so cool. I will insert videos, pictures, and everything here. I posted some pictures on my Instagram too.
We were allowed to take pictures down.
Once we got down into that area, you were allowed to take picture and video, and there was also a cool little, there was like papers in like notebooks and binders there, and if you found an empty page, you could sign it.
It was like as if it was an Earth immigration form.
Yeah, it was very cool.
You sat in the chairs of like a little break room on the side.
Yes.
You got to get up close to the aliens. You obviously couldn't touch them.
You couldn't touch the animatronics, and you weren't supposed to sit in the chairs or move anything around on the desks because it's all staged certain ways.
Yeah, to clarify, the chairs that you see from up above, there's like what is like a little side break room that's off of like the main thing. You can still see it from the above scaffolding, but that's where you could sit, not in the main chairs.
Yeah.
So I lost my tiny mind. I was like a kid on Christmas. You can see in the pictures that I'm sure you're going to put in there. I had the biggest, dumbest grin on my face because this was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my whole life. I absolutely lost my mind. I texted my sister. I texted my parents. I was freaking out. The second I got my phone back, because I had left my phone in the locker. Thank God you brought yours. Mm-hmm. I absolutely lost my mind. It was because as a child, I had always said, man, I want to go down there. Mm-hmm. I want to get close to those little blue guys. That looks so cool. I want to sit in those chairs. And I got to.
Yeah.
And this was like the dumbest childhood dream ever that could have been realized, but man, was it so important to me.
That right there made the whole $400 experience.
Oh, yeah.
And we had seen people doing it yesterday, or we had seen people doing it on Saturday when we were at Horror Nights, because we rode the Men in Black ride then. So I was like, oh my God, I think we're gonna get to do that tomorrow when we go. And so I was like, I'm gonna bring my phone onto the ride, because first of all, I've done it before. The Men in Black ride isn't too rough where you can't bring a phone, and I was like, I'm absolutely not missing the opportunity to take pictures if we can take pictures down there. So I thought to bring my phone, and it is a good thing that I did, because we got to then take pictures and videos being down in that area, and it was just the coolest experience. So absolutely made just the whole thing worth it.
Yeah, my soul left my body. I was so excited.
And so then after that, I think then we went back for some food. We had some desserts, and some drinks and things like that. And then
so we got a drink. We got drinks.
Okay.
So after that, after we did Men in Black, we got drinks at that separate bar, which the name I cannot remember.
Yes.
That's when we got the little glowy cup, if you want to show it off.
So then we got this little glowy cup that says Halloween Horror Nights 2022.
I'm sorry, my face is...
On one side. It's okay. It's also because it's like a clear plastic cup. And then it says Never Go Alone on the other side. Can we try to put like... Here, let me put this inside. There we go. So that makes it a little bit easier to see. So this is Halloween Horror Nights 2022. Never Go Alone. And then if you press the bottom, the cup lights up. And so we each got one with our drink. And then you got cheaper refills through the whole night with that cup. So yeah, we got drinks and we hung out for a little bit, got off our feet for a bit. And then it was time to go see the stage show, which...
We did Gringotts first. Remember, we had to chug our drink before we could get on Gringotts.
So we went on Gringotts, chugged our drinks, went on Gringotts.
I chugged a double gin and tonic so that we could get on Gringotts.
It was a great time.
I was feeling it.
It was a great time. And it was a fun ride. One of our friends, Kirk, had never been on the ride before, so it was really fun to like see his reaction to going on it for the first time.
And he also has the same feelings on it that I do. It's cool. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate for this because people lose their mind for Gringotts. It's cool. We do it every single time that we go because it's a fun ride. But I don't know that they implemented screens in the way that I would have hoped that they would. I think it's because it's entirely screens versus using screens to enhance it. I'm sure it's just a product of when it came out. And also, it is cheaper to build rather than a whole second animatronic dinosaur. Dragon, not dinosaur.
It's
they do have an animatronic dinosaur, just not there. But yeah, so. But he enjoyed it, so.
Yeah. But so that was a lot of fun. We also got to go through the back entrances and stuff for that. And then after that, we finally did the show. So that was about a half hour, some good music, a lot of dancing, pyrotechnics, all that kind of stuff. So it was really fun, and I would recommend it if you have the time and want to get off your feet for a half hour. And then after that, we just kind of like hit the ground running again with...
We started at the Blum House. We did... we flipped the order of that. So we did Gringotts, then we did Blum House, then we went back and got food, then we did the stage show, and then we did the final 5 houses.
Wow, I totally flipped that order.
That's okay.
They are right.
It all blurs together, but now thinking about it, because we hit those 4 houses, then we did MIB, then we got drinks, then we did Gringotts, then we did Black Phone and Freaky, which is the Blumhouse double feature. Then we did the stage show. I remember because we had to walk back and forth and we felt like we were dying inside, even though it was a lot of fun.
Yes, we had to walk back and forth a little bit.
And then we knocked out the last 5 houses.
Yes. And so we also walked through a couple of the scare zones at that point as well. So we did the like first Halloween scare zone. I'll have to look up exactly what it was called, but basically it is kind of like the story of the first Halloween where they're summoning all of these, this witch is summoning all of these monsters of Halloween, and there's a little stage show that goes with it and everything. So I filmed some of it, so I'll include a clip of it here, but it was a really cool scare zone. The scare actors were really good in it, and it was just a lot of fun, so I'll insert some footage of that there. And then we did the Fast and Furious. We did the Plum House double feature house, which was in the Fast and Furious queue.
Which, as we found out, is the first time that they have used a ride queue for a house. And it worked perfectly for this house.
It did work perfectly. So it was a Blum House double feature featuring the movies Freaky and The Black Phone, which if you have seen them, both great movies from Blum House. And it really just followed the stories of those movies, like from start to end. So it was really cool. It was like you went through one whole house that was freaky, and then you came out, there was a little break, and then you did one whole house that was the Black Phone. So they weren't like mixing the storylines or anything. So it was a really cool house and a cool concept, and I really liked it, and I thought they did a really good job. And there was, especially for the Black Phone one, there was that part at the end, which I don't want to spoil the ending of the movie, but if you know what I'm talking about, where literally everybody, as they walked through, started cheering and clapping. And I'm sure the kid actor that was in there was just like living it up. So 2 very good houses there that were technically one house, but technically 2. And then the last 4 houses that we got to do, last 5 houses that we got to do, we did Hellblock Horror first, I believe, or no, we did Spirits of the Coven first, which was kind of the story of witches during Prohibition times, and they were kind of like stealing men to feed off of in this like 1920s speakeasy, and then it kind of like traveled back in time to like the Middle Ages.
Okay, so I think
or medieval times kind of thing.
Edwardian,
there we go.
So
I don't remember.
that's what I'm
anymore.
here for. So, this to me was pretty clearly supposed to be telling the story of these witches through time, right? How they almost like aged backwards. I think that's what it was trying to say, right? Through time, how they've stolen the blood of men to make their potions.
And to, like, stay youthful.
And where they were supposed to have started out super old, right? Like, you're walking backwards through their massacres of men. The way that it was talked about, I was really hyped for. I was disappointed in this house.
Yeah.
I felt like a lot of the execution was lacking. I feel like compared to some of the other houses, the makeup was sad. It was not super great. Like, I just felt like they were off the rack masks versus, and I totally understand, not every house can have beautiful, intricate makeup, right? Some of them you just gotta make a cut and run decision and make something simple. And there's no problem with that at all. That is totally fair. But I just felt like the way that they were implemented and the way that you walk through the house, there was a lot of space in between the scares and like a lot of what I think was supposed to be more like atmospheric horror that just didn't quite hit the mark for me.
Yeah.
So I was like really excited for Spirits, and I just don't think it met what I was thinking it was going to be.
Yeah, and there was just a lot of empty space that they did not use very well. It was a disappointment of the house because we were both really excited for it because the premise of it sounded like something super cool and what we would be into.
And liquor. What more could we want?
Yeah, and eating off of, like, feeding off of men. It was everything you could want. Like, you know. But it just didn't quite hit the mark. So that was kind of unfortunate. And then next up was Hellblock Horror, which was the house that they kind of put in last minute, we believe, when they couldn't get the Evil Dead house. And so that story, you were basically following a bunch of monsters who escape from this prison or get loose inside of this prison.
You sort of, yes. So yes, you are in a monster prison, but you are tasked with the storyline is that you are supposed to be finding and restoring this core that holds the monsters in their jail cells. It is, some sort of nuclear fission core, for lack of a better term, but it is something that keeps the monsters, the aliens, and the creepy crawlies all in their cages. Somebody stole it or it broke. I don't know. Somebody didn't pay the electric bill. Like, something happened, and then and then now they're all out. It very much had like it felt kind of like I don't know, I guess kind of like a Men in Black situation. I don't know how to describe it. It felt very similar.
Like a scarier Men in Black.
It felt very similar to a lot of media in a way that I can't put my finger on,
And it was a good house. The scares were pretty good in the beginning. There is a part at the very end that is very unsettling, not for any kind of like content reasons, but it's very strobe light-y and it gets a little disorienting, is what I'll say about that. That was why I think our tour guide sat that house out and didn't want to go through it a second time. And I completely agree. I would not have wanted to go through it a second time either after experiencing that. So she did kind of like give that warning. So if you are somebody with like epilepsy or that is prone to seizures or anything like that, I would definitely not do that house just for safety reasons, because it is not like, it even affected me, and I can withstand a lot of stuff pretty well in terms of like different like, like 4D rides and things like that. Like I really don't get motion sick or bothered really by a lot of stuff, and it bothered me. So if you're sensitive to stuff like that, definitely don't do that house. No,
I grabbed onto my friend in front of me and put my head down and closed my eyes because I couldn't. I don't have any kind of seizure disorder, but it was just uncomfortable.
It's disorienting.
It was overwhelming. Yeah.
So, but otherwise, a really good house with a really good storyline. So,
that was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
I didn't have super high hopes. Not anything against it, but it just like, I was kind of on the fence about it.
It just seems so weird and thrown together. But it was actually really good.
Yeah, it was pretty well executed. I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah. And then after that, we went to the Chupacabra house, which I was like the most excited because we like really love cryptids.
Yes.
And like it just was something that just seemed like right up my alley. I really have a thing for like, I don't know, like Mexican folklore and stuff like that. So I just really was so excited for this house. So, and the whole, all the narration in the house is completely in Spanish. And so it was just like a really cool, well done house. So it was just super cool, just a super cool house, super cool concept. And it was just a whole lot of fun. They made the Chupacabras look super cute, like puppies. Well, they weren't cute, but we thought they were cute because we're twisted and weird.
Bless the tour guide, because as soon as the puppet for the Chupacabra popped out, I, at the top of my lungs, screamed, "Puppy!" And she just absolutely lost her mind. And then the whole time, I wanted to pet the Chupacabra.
They were really cute.
They were really cute. They were. I mean, like, because the whole thing with them is, right, it's like spooky because they're popping out at you. Mm-hmm. Like, that's much of Horror Nights' appeal, is jump scares. But, like, God, did this puppet just look like something I wanted to pet.
It did. It probably wasn't supposed to, but it did. So, but it was a lot of fun. It was a really cool house. It was kind of like this, like, you know, old woman in this village kind of invites you into this celebration. And it slowly but surely goes wrong. So it was just super cool. So loved that house as well. And then the last two houses that we did were, I think we did Halloween, and then we did
Dead Man's Pier.
So Halloween, the Halloween house basically followed the whole first Halloween movie from start to finish. And this is kind of your thing, so I'll let you chat about this house.
This was so good. So it does start off, and the thing I like about this is when it comes to IP houses, sometimes they try too hard to sort of ham-fist in exactly what is in the movie, right? This was more, you were spiritually walking through the movie. Spoilers for like a 40-plus-year-old movie at this point, but so the very first scene that you really see is baby Michael killing his older sister in the clown costume. Then you continue through and you come to a long dark hallway with the Halloween theme music playing, and above your head it says John Carpenter's Halloween. Like, you're walking into the movie through the credits.
Yeah.
Then it's the insane asylum scene. Then you get to see the house with Michael in the window. Then it's the sheets scene, right? So as you're walking down the corridor next to the house, or the alleyway, it's as you're walking through the sheets, and you keep kind of seeing him out of the corner of your eye as Laurie Strode does in the movie. You know, you kind of see him, you're not really sure, and then he gets you. You know, so like you kind of go through it. She was in it. Not Jamie Lee herself.
Jamie Lee Curtis herself pops out in this house. No.
If she did, the way my soul would simply flee from my body. No, but like somebody playing Jamie Lee, of course, the very famous standoff scene. The closet scene is kind of incorporated in there, but not directly, but in a way that makes you feel like you're walking through the movie. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a really original way to have done an IP house, where instead of you just walking through movie scenes, where sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, like the Black Phone.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing, and it worked perfectly. We've been in other IP houses where it just did not hit the mark at all. For this, it was the feeling of the movie with some scenes that you were walking through, really well executed. I was so very impressed with it. We did it twice. Like, the whole group was impressed with it. Even people who hadn't seen the movie were totally in love with it. So that was a really, really well done house.
It was a lot of fun. All right, so then the very last house of the night was Dead Man's Pier, which was a house based on a scare zone, Dead Man's Wharf, that they did a couple of years ago. And if I remember, I think this was a scare zone that really scared the crap out of me.
No, I don't think it was a year that we went.
No? Okay.
I think Dead Man's was in 2018.
Oh, okay. So it's the year before we started going.
Vikings was the house.
Vikings,
the one
okay. That was the one that scared me. Yeah. Okay. Getting them a little confused. But
it's all in the same vibe.
Yeah. So in this house, so the story of this house is that there was a ship full of sailors from like the Northeast Boston kind of area, like the New England area, and they are going out to sea. They're on some kind of like mission or something, right? Or they're trying to deliver something. Like they're like this like fishing boat crew, and they get lost at sea. And they send out, you know, a search party for them, but the search party has to come back, and they have to just kind of give up, and this boat is just lost at sea. And I think it's the captain's widow, right? Is like so heartbroken over this that she, you know, goes out and she like plays this like beautiful violin music to kind of like call their souls back to land. And they come back as these, you know, undersea monsters, kind of like Davy Jones' crew in the second Pirates of the Caribbean, is kind of what they kind of look like. So it is, and you're just kind of walking through. She has this bar that she runs where they now, you know, are being held or whatever. And so you're kind of going through the bar and seeing the crew and what they look like in their like monster state. And the house itself, like the temperature is like freezing cold to really resemble that New England kind of feel.
Winter.
Like winter in New England setting. And it is just like an absolutely breathtakingly beautiful house, and also really spooky and just really amazing. If you want to add anything to that, Lindsay, because I know you were just like really obsessed with this house.
I sure was. It is maybe the best house that they have ever done. It was so beautifully and lovingly constructed. Whoever worked on this house deserves, I don't know, some sort of spooky award, because just everything about the atmosphere from the moment that you cross that threshold is jaw-dropping. You step into that village, and you, in my absolute, the depths of my soul, I felt like I was walking into a haunted fishing village in 1840s New England. Mm-hmm. Everything about it, the house is that, because when you walk in, it's as if you're walking into the town square, and it's this beautiful, everything is slightly frosted over as if it had just snowed. Mm-hmm. You hear wind and distant ethereal violin music playing, calling you to walk forth through this house. Mm-hmm. I mean, from the second that you walk in there, it is as if you are truly in another place in a way that I have not experienced before. Mm-hmm. I always say things like, oh, the Pandora in Disney, you really feel like you're on an alien planet. And I do mean it. Like at night with the bioluminescence, it's beautiful. In no other way that I have experienced, from the second that I walked in that house, I felt utterly transported into another place. I felt like I was walking through a video game level, for lack of a better thing to relate it to, right?
Yeah.
Every single thing about this was constructed from start to finish perfectly. The location of the scare actors, the simple but familiar lore, the haunting violin music that's playing through it, the large distant lighthouse that sort of is this ever viewing, ever spinning light that kind of casts shadows in a way that's like, you're like, oh, is there something there? The variety of the monsters that they then brought in for the scare actors, everything about it just was absolutely gorgeous and atmospherically perfect. It was absolutely mind-blowing what they did here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a gorgeous house, and just the vibe as soon as you walked in, and then it just really like took you to another place. It was really amazing. And it was easily, I think, everybody's favorite house of the night, or one of their top favorite houses of the night. We did it again because we all loved it that much. So it was another house that we had done a second time. So it was just absolutely breathtaking. So then after we were finally done with all the houses, we went, in the ride queue, or I guess in like the Jimmy Fallon like experience ride, it's basically like a replica of like 30 Rock. And so there is like a little like rainbow room, like bar area, rooftop bar that you can go to, and you can like look out at the whole Universal Park. And so we got to go up there, which is someplace that a lot of people don't usually get to go. And so we went up there, we got some drinks and hung out for a little bit. By then it was like nearly 2 a.m. and the park was going to close. So we quickly did Halloween and Dead Man's Pier for the second times that we did them. And then we all kind of like split from there to go home. But it was an incredible experience. And having the tour guide there to first of all, to get to the front of the lines of all these houses and not have to wait, to have our tour guide to explain the backstories of everything to us. And getting to go to the front of the queue for all these rides, go through the back doors and the backstage areas of the park and everything. It was just a really cool experience. And then having, the free food and the free, soda and water and stuff like that you could get, it all made the money that you spend for the experience so worth it, especially if you're somebody like us who come down and we don't have a lot of time. Our whole friend group agreed that we're probably going to try to do this again next year if we can make it work, because we all like to go experience horror nights, but it's a lot to try to do all in one night, and we can only travel down there with limited time. Our friend Wolf was from South Carolina traveling down, so he didn't have a lot of time down here to do it either. So it's like, it's good if you want to kind of bang it all out in one night and get to see and do everything, because you are guaranteed to have the time to see and do everything. And, you know, you have until 2 a.m. for the event, so you really can, you know, just do it all, really. So it was a lot of fun, very worth the money, I think. The tour guide that we had was incredible, and I'm sure all the other tour guides were the same as well. We did tip our tour guide at the end of the night. That is kind of customary for things like this, to tip your tour guide. So make sure that you do set aside some money for that if you are, you know, if you are planning on participating in an RIP tour. Make sure you budget in for that as well when you're purchasing your tickets and everything.
I feel very strongly. Always tip your tour guides, your wait staff. Yes. I will feel free to rant on your channel. Sorry about this.
Absolutely.
Always tip any sort of person in the service industry. Doesn't matter. It's tough enough out there. Throw them a couple bucks.
Yes. 100%. Absolutely. So that was our experience with the RIP tour and with Halloween Horror Nights. And really, like, once you get signed in and you get hooked up with your tour guide, you're basically set for the whole rest of the night, because they really handle everything. Like, they check you in for all the houses and, you know, guide you up to the front of the lines, help you get into all the areas that, you know, the VIP areas that you're allowed to get into and stuff like that. Because they have their little credentials that they can scan or whatever. So, you know, it's really like a no-brainer, like, no thoughts situation once you get through the doors. So, would highly recommend, you know, doing that for anybody who is into Horror Nights and wants to do it and wants to do everything, but doesn't have a lot of time.
Yeah, I would, as I know you said we would do it, we're doing it next year, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. No question, there's no doubt in my mind. We are the type of people who place a lot of value in experiences, and if there is a better or more efficient way that we can have an experience within reason, if it's something that we can afford in our budget, we will do it.
Yeah.
Right? We'll do VIP tickets for concerts, or you know, if there's like a tour or an additional something that you can get at a museum, we'll do it because we're big experience people. And I think that this VIP tour has really led to the best experience that we have had at Horror Nights.
Yeah, I don't think I want to do Horror Nights any other way
I
now.
simply
After doing this, like,
we
are spoiled at this point. And like any other time that we've gone to Horror Nights, I've never really wanted to partake in a lot of the food and drink, because it's just so hot and you're standing in line for so long that I'm like, if I drank right now, I would be sick. No. But this, you got to sit down, you could take a lot of breaks and, you know, kind of go at your own pace. So I was able to kind of enjoy, you know, the food and drinks at the event a little bit more,
so
which I
the other thing that I'll say is I then never felt guilty about the food choices that I was making, not in terms of, you know, whatever, but when we then buy something, if we don't like it, we feel obligated to just continue eating it, right?
Yeah.
If it ends up being too hot or we're too tired, like, we both feel kind of bad about having wasted $12 on a sandwich that neither of us particularly liked. But with the food and drink being built in and the way that they had the La Bamba set up, it's a buffet style with lots of options and also the ability to take smaller portions of things, right? I don't have to go full tilt on a $12 sandwich that I don't know if I'll like. I have a mini slider version of it, or I can just take a scoop, right? And it's already built into the price of the ticket. That's why I always felt so strongly about liking meal plans at Disney. I like not having to think about these things when I'm on vacation, right? I like things being simple. I like things being inclusive and built in, so that way I can just go and worry about enjoying myself. Yeah. And I think that the RIP tour, specifically the private RIP tour, really allowed that to happen. That. Yeah. That so many of the details were taken care of for you. You just had to worry about enjoying yourself. Yeah. And so I don't think I can ever do Horror Nights another way now.
Not at all.
It was truly and I will readily admit sometimes we've spent money on experiences that were not worth it. This is without a doubt in my mind absolutely worth every 100%. Cent that we paid.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we're kind of done with our review, let's kind of go through and rank all of the houses in order of our most favorite to least favorite. Yeah. So I think my number one favorite house did end up being the Weekend house. I just really loved everything about the house. I liked the music. I liked the vibe. I was very pleasantly surprised by that house, I think, which is why it stands up there at the top for me because I just didn't know what to expect going in and ended up really enjoying myself. So it kind of just stayed up at the top. What was your number one?
I really am struggling to pick because depending on what aspect we're talking about, my top 3 will sort of slide between those. Where it's the Legends house, which was the Monsters house, Halloween, just because I love Halloween, and Wharf. Sorry, Pier. I keep calling it Wharf. Dead Man's Pier. It was, all 3 of them were so wonderful in their own unique ways. I'm so glad we got a second run at the Monsters house.
Yes, where it was just much better.
It completely changed my opinion.
100%.
It was easily the worst house that we did on Saturday.
Yeah.
And it easily
was one of the best on
was
Sunday.
Absolutely so well done when we did it on Sunday. And I'm so glad for the sake of our friends who had never, Kirk had never done it before. Ellie had never done it before. You know, I don't know if, you know, anybody else had done, I think Ash and Lem had, but for people who hadn't done it before, it really would have broke my heart to have them have a bad run through of you know, properties that I particularly love. So I'm really happy that they wound up with a good run through.
Absolutely.
So those are my top 3 of those. If you want to.
And then my other top, you know, top in my 3 were Halloween and the Universal Monsters house as well. So the only one that didn't make my top 3 was Dead Man's Pier, which I loved it, but like I don't know, it just doesn't make my top 3. It's probably number 4 for me is Dead Man's Pier.
So I think
Sorry, camera died, so we're using Lindsay's phone. So if the camera quality has gone down a little bit, that is why we're using the front-facing camera and Lindsay's phone, which is a slightly older iPhone model, so it might just be like slightly less, but still hopefully good.
I am running this thing into the
Bear
ground.
with it. So I think we went through our top 3 houses. I think I went through 4. So my top 4 were The Weeknd, Halloween, Universal Monsters, and Dead Man's Pier. And yours were?
Mine was interchangeably top 3 depending on what we're talking about. Legends, which is Monsters, Halloween, and Dead Man's Pier. And then my 4th, that's really tough because I enjoyed a lot of them. I think I'll put The Weeknd because I really enjoyed The Weeknd house. I know a lot of our friends ranked it lower, but I really like The Weeknd's music and I like the music video. So like I think I had already had that connection to it anyway. So I think 4th I would put 4th I'll put Weeknd.
Okay, so we have the same top 4 just in slightly different orders. I think for my 5th house, I'm gonna put, and this might be a different order than I gave when we've talked about this before, because I don't remember what like the bottom half really was to all, but I think I am going to put as my 5th house the Blum House, Freaky and Black Phone double feature. I really love the Black Phone section of that house. It like was really, really creepy every time we did it. And so I just thought it was a lot of fun. So I really liked that one.
I think for 5, I think I'd put Freaky, the Blum House one too. Between that and Descendants of Destruction. I really liked Descendants of Destruction. I thought that was a pretty well done original house. So I guess my 5 and 6 would be, again, kind of interchangeably, kind of hard to rank them when they're so close. Would be the Blum House and Descendants.
I think 6 for me would be the Chupacabra house, just because I had a lot of fun in that house. And they were so cute.
I wanted to pet one
so I absolutely love that house. My 7th choice would be the Descendants of Destruction, just because that last bit was a little cheesy for me.
But I think that's why I liked it, because it was cheesy.
Yeah.
For 7, I'd put Chupacabra, and again, it's close. I really liked Chupacabra. I think it was a really cool concept. There's a couple of things that I wish they had executed a little bit differently or better. And so that's why I kind of ranked a little bit lower. I think the atmosphere was really cool, and I think the concept of it was good. I just think some of the scares could have been, and again, this is very dependent on the run through where I was in the order. So I think the scares may not have, just the timing of it for our run through didn't really work for me.
And then for my last 3, 8, we're going to go with Hellblock Horror. 9, we're going to go with Spirits of the Coven. Hellblock is so low on the list just because of that very last part. Coven was just a disappointing house for me. I really expected a lot more of it, and it just didn't really deliver. And then very last, I'm going to put Bugs because I didn't do it, so I can't really have an opinion on it, but I think it would have disturbed me in not a fun way. So that is my last.
Yeah, I think I'm going with your 8 for Hellblock. I think Hellblock felt kind of like almost like an Out of Control X-Files episode. Like I think that's what I was trying to think of before. So that's 8. 9 for me is Bugs. Bugs was fun. I don't have anything personally against Bugs. It just wasn't like an absolutely fantastic wowing house. And 10, I'm gonna put Coven because it was just such a letdown. I was really pretty disappointed with Coven this year. Not through any lack of trying on the scare actors' part, had nothing to do with them. I just think that the way that the house was planned out and some of the costuming, I kind of dragged it down out of enjoyable territory for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, that is our ranking of all 10 of the Halloween Horror Nights houses. That is our review of the RIP tour. Thank you to anybody who has stuck around for this long. If you went to Halloween Horror Nights, let us know down below what your thoughts on all of the houses and scare zones were. If you are thinking of going to Halloween Horror Nights and you maybe have some more questions about the night or any of the, REP tour or anything like that, leave them down below in the comments as well. We would love to help, you plan your trip and answer any questions that we can.
I love talking about Horror Nights, so
I
please.
absolutely do, and I love planning vacations. Like, I do all the planning for our Disney vacations and stuff, so I, absolutely would love to talk about it and help anybody out with it. So yeah, leave those comments down below. And if you like this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. That really helps out the channel a lot. And subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell so that you can come get stuck in the Upside Down with me again soon. We talk mostly Disney here, but we occasionally talk some other spooky stuff. So if those things are interesting to you, please stick around and give this video a thumbs up so I know to keep talking about more spooky things as well as just Disney.
Spooky season.
So if you want to follow Lindsay on their social medias, they are Duck's Card Nest on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, where they do Pokemon card rips. So if you are a Pokemon fan, check out Lindsay. I will also link all of our friends that went on the RIP tour with us down below so that you can follow them, because most of them have a TikTok or Instagram or a YouTube or something that they do.
And we're friends with really cool people that you should follow.
They're really fun.
You should buy clothing from Kirk.
Yeah.
You should follow Lem on his everyday. He walks through the parks every morning through the Disney parks. So I'm just saying.
If you need that Disney fix every day, Lem is a great way to get it.
Yeah.
So.
And then you can see me being chaotic in all of their chats. So it's a good time.
Yeah. So follow everybody involved. Follow Lindsay. They'll be linked down below. Subscribe to their channel. They recently started their YouTube channel and are trying to get more consistent with the uploading to the YouTube. They're really good with TikTok, but YouTube
it's such a different beast, man.
It's taken a bit to it's hard to get the groove with YouTube. Yeah. So definitely support them. And as always, I hope that you guys are having a magical week. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.
Bye.
Bye guys. Happy spooky season.
Happy spooky season.